Hello, Bob with Everyday Arsenal Knife Services here. Want to do a quick review of a knife that I had in for sharpening. And this is the ZT0804CF. It's a Todd Rexford design. And the whole knife is kind of a stealth black, which is pretty neat. It's a larger knife. The blade comes in at almost 4 inches, 3.8 inches and some change. And it's a fairly tall blade. And I got a nice flat grind on it for most of the width of the blade. Fairly thin blade stock for a knife this big, and with that kind of a grind on it, I expect it would slice pretty well. I don't know, I didn't slice things with it after I got it sharpened because I don't like dulling a knife I just sharpened, but it's a pretty large knife. It's almost 9 inches overall when it's opened. But despite all of that, because you've got titanium on one side and a solid slab of carbon fiber on the other, it stays pretty light, and it doesn't really weigh the pocket down too much. Got a nice USA-made pivot right there, kind of a unique pivot there like that. It is tip-up carry only, but it's left or right hand. And they've got this milled out pocket clip, which is neat. I do like the milled out pocket clips as opposed to just the the flat stamped ones or whatever. The detent is a little mushy on this one for a ZT, especially. It's not bad. I mean, it's not gonna fall open or anything, but it's just a little squishy, and the customer wanted me to work on that. Unfortunately, I wasn't really able to do a whole lot for it because the detent ball is seated all the way inside of the receiving hole, so I couldn't really make the detent any better. The lock bar is pretty solid. You can see there's still quite a bit of titanium right there, so there's not a little thin lock bar in the, it's a pretty substantial chunk of metal holding your blade open, which is good. I like my fingers, like them to stay where they are. Lockup is good. A little difficult to see there, but lockup is about 50%. It does have a lock bar insert. You can see that there, so it's not titanium on steel. It's steel on steel. Extend the life of your lock bar theoretically. Of course, some guys say that if you've got steel on steel, it's more likely to slip because the thing about titanium is it's a little bit softer, and so it grabs a little bit easier. Of course, then you've got the blade stick going on. But overall, I think this is a great knife. I like ZT. I think they do a good job. They make good knives. A couple things I'm not a big fan of, aside from the little bit squishy of a detent. They have, you can see right here, just a little bit of milling out on the inside, theoretically, so you can get your thumb in there a little bit easier to push the lock bar over. It's still pretty hard to push the lock bar over. I think if they were to drop this down just a little bit right here, it'd be a lot easier to access that lock bar. So that's a little bit of a pain. If it were my knife, I'd probably make that adjustment just because it gets tiresome reaching over the carbon fiber and then trying to push the lock bar over, but you're having to push downward because the carbon fiber's in the way, and so it's even harder to push the lock bar over than it should be. And again, it's a fairly, you're pushing against quite a bit there. So not a huge fan of that. It does have a bar back here, but overall I think it's a good knife. It's a good design. And so if you're interested in this at the price of a couple $100, it's not bad. It's really nice. Rides on bearings. It's got good steel. CTS 204P, I think. Yeah. So if you're interested in this knife, my recommendation is pick it up. So those are my thoughts on this blade. And let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching.